say, okay, I have a lot of money, but you have no money unless you take profits.
When the first ever spot ETF was created for gold 10x.
And the only thing I really knew was Bitcoin at the time, so I just invested very heavily into that. Rode it all the way up.
What's up?
My name is Jeff. Even the creators have said it's going to be the predecessor of CBDC.
What that taught me was that I need to be self-sufficient.
A solid DCA investment strategy, and pretend the red sell button doesn't even exist.
We about to go up like.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and D-Gens of all ages. We're back for episode number 2 of Book Club. I am joined with my beautiful panel of what is shaping up to be the Book Club gang, and I am excited to be talking about The Richest Man in Babylon. As far as I can tell, this appears to be some of the OG knowledge of financial literacy, coming back all the way from about 2000 BC and a little bit before the birth of Christ, according to historians. And the wildest thing, something that our own Will Stevenson pointed out earlier, is that all this knowledge came to us through clay tablets that have somehow survived the test of time and history. And God bless those poor souls that this is what their job was. They wrote stuff down on like 8 by 12 by 1 inch thick clay tablets, and that was about it. All right. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Nate. Nate, how we doing?
Doing quite good. I actually woke up yesterday feeling like I got hit by a truck with insane pain in my head, just chest pains, body pains everywhere. But guess what? I still went out and did a full 9 hours work and got sales and everything and did, in my company's opinion, stellar job. So no matter what you guys feel like, you can always get out there and succeed. Well, as long as you've got the grit to actually go out and do it.
That's true. Well, thank you for toughing it out and toughing it out for your family as well. And then also joining us on top of that. So question for you. Do you have any key takeaways or fun little finds you had in the book?
Yeah. So the thing that I thought was very interesting is, well, I'll kind of bounce off of what Will even said with the clay tablets. You know, it seems weird nowadays for us to look back and be like, you know, as you said, Will, I'm going to go ahead and steal this one from you if you don't mind, to be able to write your entire life on clay tablets or etch it into clay tablets, right? That's a little something else, especially when you're thinking about all the technology we have nowadays. How patient are you going to be able to do that, right? Probably not at all. But what I kind of have got to say about that is, like, when you think about today's world versus 5,000 years ago, life in itself was a bit slower, right? I mean, as an easy example that I would like to use, you know, Minneapolis to St. Paul. That's like what, 20, maybe 30-minute drive, right? Just in between cities. Okay, well, back then it was probably like maybe anywhere from a 3 to 5 day journey. Things were just so much slower back in those days. People were expecting to spend years doing stuff, and that was kind of their main thing. You got to think though too, I don't think you had as many choices of things to do back in the day as well. So, you know, less choice, just kind of slowly get things done. That I would almost say it might have possibly been a little simpler than nowadays.
Fair enough. Good points right there. All right, going over to one of our panel, Will Stevenson. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm excited. Like tonight, so I thought that I was going to have to stream from up in the tower while we were installing some stuff, but the weather is just too bad. So I am driving home right now, happy as a clam that I don't have to be working outside at night in the rain trying to get some stuff up on a self-supporter. So that's fantastic and great for me. And it's always good to be able to like focus a little bit better on the podcast than like, you know, trying to hold on for dear life all the time. But I'm doing pretty good.
Fantastic. And then do you have any takeaways or fun facts from the book that you found?
Yeah, so actually my favorite part of the book is something that has nothing to do with the finances in the book. It's the story of the donkey and the ox, as told by like some dude about like a farmer. Was like but I don't know if we'll cover it later in the story, but the basic gist of the little anecdote was like, there's a difference between helping people by like taking their burden up for them or helping them by giving them better tools by which they can take up their own burdens and stuff. It's like you shouldn't, like if you want to help somebody, you shouldn't do the work for them. You should help them become enabled to the point where they can do the work for themselves. Because otherwise, like there's a whole little slew about that in the Richest Man in Babylon. But that part really stuck out to me more so than any of the money stuff. But that was my favorite part. What about you? What was your favorite part?
I think I actually found the invention of one of my favorite phrases, that there is nothing new under the sun. If this is historically accurate, then from about 2000 BC, we found the first guy that says, there's nothing new today that is not new under the sun from yesterday. I was like,
Gotcha.
There it is. There it is. So that's what I got. All right. We are going on to our final member, and we have Mrs. McGettit. Not as much seen around here, but still majorly important. Excuse me. She does production for the show, and we are so happy to have her back on the book club core group, so to speak. All right. How are we doing this evening, ma'am?
Hey, I'm doing all right. We got everything figured out and ready to go. I've got some screens made up for us now, so it'll be easier to do that. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Perfect.
But yeah, not too much really going on this week, so.
Outstanding. And then, do you have anything from the book that particularly tickled your fancy?
Well, there are a lot of things, but kind of like Will, I'm not sure if we're going to get into all of it later. So, keep it brief. I guess one of the biggest things for me is that a lot of the concepts that they talk about can still be applied to today. One of the biggest ones being, the 5 rules of gold, which we'll get into. So I don't want to go too far, but for sure, that was one of the big things to me. I didn't know, actually, that these were on stone tablets. I remember them mentioning that, but I kind of zoned over it because I was doing some other things while I was listening. So finding that out just, and really kind of emphasized to me of like how cool that is. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I don't know. We might have mentioned this previously, but the book is not too long. I think most of us actually ended up listening to it on audiobook. I will admit it's a little bit of old English. However, at normal speed, the audible recording is like just under 4 hours. So if you're able to crank it up to like 2 times speed at the most, you can knock this out like before even your afternoon is over. Old. With that said, before we get into it, I do want to give a shout out to some of our folks that have gotten in here early, and we're actually part of the gang that voted on this book. First off, we got Trolling Moling talking about Bookman. We have Moonpill, the Rational Optics, saying, "What's up, D-Gens?" I remember seeing your name on our voting sheet for picking the books. Glad to have you back. We also have No Money Mike showing up. He asks, Will, unrelated, but what are you driving, brother?
Shit. I am driving a bicycle right now. It's a very fast enclosed cab bicycle. I drive a Chevy 1500. Good old Silverado with real tornadoes under the hood.
Beautiful. People are admiring the interesting choice of helm you have there.
Oh yes, here, let me give you guys a little bit of, this is my ship's steering wheel. So this is how I drive, is with this thing. I don't know if you can see that very well. I have no idea what the phone's pointing at.
It's pointing at the steering wheel. You're good. Don't worry about it.
Hell yeah.
And then finally, we got the Ascending Man up in here. I believe that is Brendan. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for tuning in to talk about some books with us. Alrighty, with that said, I'm going to get into what's going on with a bit of a preface for the book, and then we're going to go on to the 3 major points that I picked out. First off, we're going to be talking about the parable of the 7 cures for an empty wallet. After that, we're going to be talking about the story of the 5 laws of gold. And then finally, after that, we're going to finish off our schedule segment with talking about the story or parable of the goddess of luck, or how to beat procrastination. So with that said, quick background on the book. The Richest Man in Babylon is historically accurate stories, from what we can tell, of the richest man in Babylon. His name was Arkad back in the day. For a quick synopsis of what Babylon is, it's not particularly a resource-rich area. In fact, it really just has one river. However, what they did have was a lot of innovators, a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, and a lot of engineers. So notably, there were a few things that can be considered wonders of the world. The first was the actual walls of Babylon. They're storied to be so large and wide that you could run 2 chariots side by side on top of the walls. So as far as stone goes, That's a lot of stone considering they're in the middle of the desert where not a whole lot of stone to find. Additionally, they had a massive irrigation, and you are probably familiar with the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. In the stories, they talk about how the Hanging Gardens were able to divert some of the water. However, at the end of the day, they still required a lot of manpower. In fact, so much that there were trains of servants that would go fill up sheepskins with water just to water the gardens. All right, that's a bit of historical context for you. So we mentioned this because this book is obviously about economic importance and how to fix finances. So this area of the world was very good at that, and we're going to be sharing the stories of how they proliferated this information within their own society. So with that said, we're going to get on to the 7 cures for an empty purse, or empty wallet, rather. This parable starts off with a musician and a chariot maker talking about lamenting how they never have enough money to keep their wallets full, but they have just enough to live on. They talk about how they remember their one school friend from back in the day named Arcad. He wasn't particularly more skilled than anyone else, or knowledgeable, or born into a rich family. But for some reason, he had become the richest man in Babylon. Meanwhile, these 2 gentlemen had become a very fine chariot maker by all available evidence, and a very good musician, again, by all available evidence. So they asked themselves, why did he make it, and why didn't we? One of the conclusions that they drew to was that whatever you put your focus to, you can get very good at it. They focused on being musicians and chariot makers, and their friend focused on making money. So this is where they come to one of the first lessons that they have, which is that maybe we should go talk to this guy and try to figure out what he knows that we don't. They say, quote, "It costs nothing to seek wise advice from a friend. Money is hard to come by, but advice, if you know who you're talking to, they're more than likely to share it with you." So with that said, we're going to get into the 7 cures for an empty wallet. Number 1, start thy purse to fattening, aka save money. In this case, one of the things that they talk about very frequently is the idea of saving at least 10% of your income as long-term investments and savings. Number 2, we have control expenditures. Basically, they talk about you are always spending money, but it's important to discern between what is a want versus what it is a need. This is going to help you eliminate things that are wasteful or not needed necessarily. But at the same time, they do also talk about the idea of not truly starving yourself just to save a buck, but cutting expenses where you can. Third, make that gold multiply. Basically, those savings that you just accrued, find a way to invest them. Number 4, guard thy treasures. This basically talks about avoiding investment that sounds too good to be true and investing in areas where you have particular knowledge. One of the things they talk about is a flaw that a new saver/investor made was that he listened to a brickmaker about an investment opportunity where they went overseas to buy jewels and then come back and sell them. In the end, they got ripped off because the brickmaker didn't know jewels from broken glass. So when they came back, their treasure was worthless. After that, the man started making wise investments with people who knew what they were talking about and what he also knew. Number 5, make thy dwelling profitable. Basically just talking about there's a certain intangible value that comes with owning a home. Not only is it eventually going to pay itself off so you have your own dwelling for the rest of time, but there's a sense of pride and ownership that goes into it to make sure that you're upkeeping it well, and then it also is rewarding and fulfilling to make you want to keep working hard as well. Number 6, ensure future income. Protect yourself with life insurance or alternative revenue streams. Basically, look forward to the future. Understand that one day, if you are a laborer by trade, your body's going to give out or you just get too old to do it. So you got to find ways to work into the future and ensure that you're not going to go broke then. Lastly, improve your ability to earn. Strive to be wiser and more knowledgeable. Basically, it just comes down to always be seeking more information and more knowledge. Always be curious and hungry for information. All right. There you go. That's enough talking from me. I'm going to turn it over to our panel, but I have a question for them. Does this advice sound very foreign? Nate, what do you think? Oh, Will, what you got?
So I was gonna say, like, it's one of the common themes in advice books. It's just pretty much everyone knows everything that we already need to do in order to be successful in all these endeavors in life. And the stuff that, like, those 7 cures or those seven principles of, like, wealth, it's all like super obvious stuff, you know. Save money, protect your investments, own your house, frickin' learn some stuff. It's like, this is all stuff that we've all heard before, but like they couple it with a couple of tales in the books, a couple of cool little stories and things like that. And it's just, it's interesting how simple all the things are in life, that like how simple are all the things that we already know, all the stuff that we need to do. It's just a matter of implementing all this stuff. So it's very, very tried and true advice there. Does that answer your question? Is that what you were asking?
Absolutely. The point I'm trying to get to here is that a lot of this information doesn't sound that revolutionary or even that new. In fact, one of the things I mentioned previously is that this is some of the original source of financial investment knowledge. And to be honest with you, it's not too complicated. It's just about people finding discipline, creating a plan, and sticking to the plan. And then just protecting your investment to make sure that it's not just going to go to zero, and then it actually is going to stick around for a while.
Correct. Right. I have a quick question for you. Before, are we going to go later on in this little podcast here about the example they provide later in the book, where they talk about like a 19th century person who had found these clay tablets, and they're like, oh, this is an interesting premise, and they were like super duper deep in debt, and they applied like some of the principles of like of paying back debt and stuff. Is that something you're going to cover?
I did have it on the docket, but we can, you can touch on it right now. Take it away.
Okay. Well, yeah. So it's like, it's just interesting that like all this tried and true tested advice from like thousands and thousands of years ago. I think that Babylon was around, I want to say like biblical times. So, you know, over 2,000 years ago, maybe 2,500, 3,000 years. I don't know exactly.
Will, are you there, brother?
Oh, there we go. Am I back?
There it is. Okay, you're back.
All right. Sweet. Where did I leave off? What did I miss?
At the start.
Oh, at the very start. Okay.
You're out for
Well, it's
about 15
basically just
seconds.
like, oh, okay, gotcha. Well, the point of what I wanted to say is just like, it's interesting how like people in this modern day and age like are suffering the same like indebtedness problems as people from 3,000 years ago, and it's like the super duper simple solutions of like, you know, hey, pay yourself first, and like take a small portion of your paycheck, learn to live on less than you need, take a small portion of that and pay off the people that you owe money to, and blah-de-da-de-da. Like eventually you'll be debt free and happy, and you know, make your home a happy place. That was more or less where I was going to go with it. It's just like, just kind of hammering down on the point that all this tried and true like advice has been around for a long, long time. It's just a matter of implementing common sense more so than knowing some tricky, cool, fantastic thing, like some sort of crazy life hack. It's like, nah, just save money and pay your debts, and then, you know, invest that money that you've saved.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of the advice still holds true today. Granted, the times change, and the tools that we use to make money are absolutely going to move with the current times. But when it comes back to the core of it, the pure strategy remains the same. So with that said, Nate or Mrs. McGetta, any comment on difference between advice you see today versus this original advice?
Yeah, personally, I kind of found it to be a little outdated, because unfortunately in the money system that we are currently in, some of those don't really work out for you. You know, one of those being just save money. Well, unfortunately, if you save money, you're going backwards. You need to gain more money, because I mean, inflation itself is rising at 15% a year. If you haven't made an increase in your own money, saving it and saving an increase of about 15%, you're already losing money. You're going backwards. The other thing that was extremely large to me, that just kind of made me slap my face while listening to it, was owning your own home. For most of history, this was probably the greatest thing you possibly could have done. Nowadays, it's basically useless. Ultimately, what are you going to do now? You're going to take out debt to have a loan to pay off, which is usually more expensive, plus the taxes, plus everything is your responsibility, than anything you could just simply rent. Or you could have a lower cost rent and then do what, you know, something like, say, crypto, which ultimately I would put that in the category of the second one, which is simply, hey, cut off what you possibly can to make more money over the long run, right? And I can throw more into crypto, right? That's going to get me overall more. So, there's obviously there's strategies in real estate where it's like I use debt to buy a house and then collateralize that to take on more debt to get another house, and you can like compound that way. But that's also one of those things where you kind of need to know what you're doing, and that's somebody who needs to be in the real estate market.
Understandable.
So some of the, like, when a lot of these lessons are for like the common man to learn and just be financially literate enough to at least be okay and succeed enough, right? Not become the richest man in Babylon necessarily, but you can do well for yourself. And that's kind of where a lot of these stories go. But then obviously these other guys just took it to the moon, right? So that's kind of the thing that I really noticed that I thought was very interesting is like, isn't it weird how for 5,000 years this has been very sound advice for people legitimately getting rich, and then right around say the 70s, for the past, what is that, like 50 years now, all of a sudden it's outdated information? I don't know, man. Seems like something's a little screwed up over our system.
That's
Well, can I add
entirely
a little
possible. Go for it, Will.
I'd like to add a little bit of nuance to your point, Nate. You're totally right that people saving money nowadays are not going to they're not going to be successful. They're not going to do anything. And you're right that is totally because of the inflationary system that we have, where, we're printing another 5% every year. So if you're not earning at least 5%, you're not breaking even on the value that you've created. I think that the point of the where I'm going to kind of like, I don't think that the book necessarily agrees or disagrees or that the advice is outdated, but I think that the principle of saving or of storing the value that you create, whether you want to consider it as like US dollars, or like you collect a bunch of eggs that a chicken has laid, or like, something to that nature, the principle of saving and storing some sort of form of value that you can then use as a tool to invest in something that will grow over time. Or like, you can, let's say you save a bunch of eggs that the chickens lay and you don't eat them or whatever, and then another one hatches into a chicken, then boom, you've just created another money printer, right? Like, we're always talking about the money printers and shit. Like, I think that's sort of kind of the principle. So yeah, that the advice is a little bit outdated simply because the monetary system that we use nowadays is just like the printing machines going burr, and it's super duper trash and stuff. So yeah, that's all I had on that.
So I actually want to throw this out then too. So why would it be that maybe off of 5,000 years, it's now outdated, right? Well, how about this? Since the past about 120 years now, we've had a global system where every single country is involved in each other. This is the first time it's ever happened in world history. There have been a lot of countries getting all of Europe, some of Africa, some of Asia, but they haven't been global to the point where you got North America, South America, Antarctica, right? And just every other continent out there. So this is the first time we've ever had that. And as soon as we get a global system, there all of a sudden becomes trying to have a global system of money that tends to work for enriching countries. Now, what happens when enriching those countries turns into the mess that we have now? How do we revert back to what I would consider is probably the better way to do money, technically? You kind of have to burn things down to rebuild them, unfortunately, with where we're at now. At least that's my opinion.
You're talking about replacing the fiat system with the crypto system?
Whoa, hey, crypto is going to zero. SEC, don't come after us. Government, don't come after us. We don't condone crypto at all. The fiat system's the best one.
I think that the advice is sound, and the fact of the matter that like the world that we live in has changed a little bit to make good advice no longer applicable is just kind of like what you were saying earlier. It's just kind of indicative of the like, well, it's sad really that it's indicative of the fact that we are no longer in a place where good advice can be applied using the system in which we live to like ascend and grow and learn more things and stuff.
Yeah, I don't disagree that as times change, so do some of the difficulties and the problems, which is that particularly throughout the 1900s, when a lot of countries were trying to get up to that first world standard and really modernize, they had issues with their own monetary systems. Like Even Britain back in the 70s was experiencing massive stagnation and inflation. That's where stagflation came from originally. And then even in the 90s, we had Japan having that large economic boom. And then eventually they also had a lot of stagnation and inflation as well. And their economy is like just barely recovering out of it. It is an emerging market, but at the same time, you can't ignore that. It's like 20, 30 years of downtimes for sure. The modern times come with their own modern ills, but I think you can still find nuggets of truth in the advice that the book talks about. Like if you boil down all of the YouTube finance channels and their advice, it really comes down to a few things. It's you got to save up, you got to pay off your debts. Invest
save
a little
up,
bit.
Yeah.
And then additionally, reduce your expenditures. Figure out what you really need and figure out what you are wanting but don't necessarily need and cut that out. They're not necessarily telling you to live like a beggar, but at the same time, all of this information can honestly be written down on a napkin and presented in that way. It's just there's a lot of pressures that come with it. I know in a lot of the other books that we're going to be covering on Book Club, one of the things that is routinely talked about is the idea of lifestyle expansion or inflation, sort of keeping up with the Joneses. It's the idea that you get a new job, need a new car, need a new house. Sure, you could, but at the same time, old house and old car are working just fine. You might feel pressure to do it for like social status or image, but at the end of the day, that 2002 Honda Accord is going to get you to work the same as a Jaguar.
Can I jump in here for a sec?
Absolutely. What you got?
I just wanted to say that I think I'm kind of the outlier here. I don't think the advice is dated. Not really. I think it might need to be reapplied kind of in a different way.
Yeah.
For example, if you're stacking fiat, US dollars, then yeah, you're kind of wasting your time. They're not really doing anything. They're being printed en masse. But I mean, if you're taking that and you're reverting it into other streams, like crypto, obviously is a good one. Physical items, gold, silver, things that are scarcities, even copper is a good choice. Then you can still apply the same principles. You just need to kind of get your mindset into a space where you're not looking at a dollar bill as having some kind of a value that is basically like a pseudo value kind of at this point.
Yeah, I think what we're all sort of saying here is like you don't want your dollars as a long-term store of value. It's like you have to consider the timetable, right? Like if we're in the crypto market and the numbers are going up, right? If Bitcoin is going from 20,000 to 30,000 to 40,000, right? And it's like, oh shit, it's now too expensive to buy Bitcoin anymore. Like that's the time where if you're still accruing dollars, you would want to be saving up those dollars in the short term for whenever the price starts dipping again. You can then take that stacked up capital and use it to purchase the thing that's actually valuable. It's like how did Walrus put it the other day? I can't remember if it was in one of his streams with us or with whomever it was, but he had said that like you spend your least valuable asset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the asset that you're spending is going to be put towards an item that is a high price right now but will be low price later, then yeah, it's appropriate to stack the cash and stuff, but on a short time frame, as opposed to like, oh, cash is going to be my long-term vehicle for accruing wealth and like retirement and just like building up my my monetary value as an individual or as an entity or something like that. So I think that's what the same page that all of us on the podcast are on right now, is that like we don't want to be in cash super long term, but we can definitely like if we see the price of something is a little bit too high, too expensive for us, then we can hold on to our cash, or we could buy a different thing that's like, you always want to buy I think Brendan Carter on one of the Fresh and Fit streams was saying you want to buy a diamond when it's on sale for a penny. You don't want to buy a diamond for like diamond price. You want to buy it for pennies prices. And then when that diamond that you have acquired at penny prices accrues to diamond price or slightly below it, whatever, that's the time where you can take profit on your initial investment and stuff like that.
Yeah, really, really, really quick here. I wanted to bring this up. Exactly what Moonpill here is saying. The book doesn't just say save money and then hoard money. It also says to make that money work for you. So you got to put that into application as well. And putting it into crypto would be just one of those ways to do that.
Hell yeah, bro.
For sure. And then to get back to your original comment there, I know me personally, I'm right there with you. I think a lot of this advice holds true today, and I think this is the basis for good personal finance. I think that the difference between now and then is that the system is expanded. Originally, you only had the avenues that were in front of you, which was the currency was gold. There really is no like modern monetary theory or fiat currency. I mean, arguably, thankfully, back in those days. But at the same time, the money supply was very limited. And there were also issues with the time, which is that like money didn't translate great between different areas of the world, other than the universal forms of exchange, which was gold, silver, and copper in some places. But yeah, I think, my opinion, the kernels of truth that lay inside of all of these little 7 steps and the rest of the book, it's very applicable to today. You just also have to think outside the box a little bit and understand how you can apply our modern system and really take advantage of it.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. I think we have a good comment that we want to highlight real quick.
Hell yeah.
From Bungalows for Bachelors.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Can we not apply good advice because there's no longer an average person to take basic advice? Are there only 2 categories? Those who spend it all and those who make massive gains.
Damn, good.
You know what's funny about that is the last section of that is I do both of those right now.
Spend it all and make gains?
I spend it all immediately. So going back to kind of what you were saying about Walrus saying what is the least valuable to you and spending that first. I'm gonna give you a little insight into how it is that I spend money. The second I get my paycheck, I look at it, it goes into my bank account, and I say, okay, spend everything I can on any debts I've got, but I'm not putting it all into debts, right? So it's not like poof gone. I'm putting a fair amount, probably a good like 1/3 of it into any debts that I do have. And then I'm putting exactly enough, which is probably about 1/4 or less than that, 1/5, into any possibilities of anything else kind of coming up, which is basically just $300 extra for until my next paycheck comes in. And then I'm not going to lie, everything else that I've got, I yeet into some kind of investment. Right now it's crypto. I refuse to have fiat just sitting there. Here's the way that I look at currencies in general. They are current. They are currencies. They are not money. Money is great because you are able to hold them, and they either accrue or maybe they'll go down. It doesn't really matter, but they're still a store of value of some kind, right? That is money, and then you exchange those for goods. Whereas a currency is always continually going in and out of things, right? That's an economy, because technically economies are just continually moving in and out of. So I refuse to hold any kind of fiat. It's either going into some kind of debt that I can use for something that is not fun, but actually important for my future self, or straight into crypto. I spend it all immediately, every single time I get my paycheck. And here's the other thing about that too.
Keep going.
I use credit to pay for anything that might come up. Like say, hey, my girl wants to go have sushi. Well, sushi usually costs us right around $80 every time I go do it. I sit there and I'll kind of just look real quick at the finances and be like, you know what, technically I guess I could pay for this. All right, cool. And I swipe the card instead. Now, the reason for that is it actually gives me an extension of time of approximately anywhere from a month to 2 months before I realized, oops, that was not good. So that way I can take that 1/3 that I would usually put into any kind of debts, aka credit, right? And I can maybe put a little bit more in this next paycheck around because, maybe I messed up a little bit. That way you're padding yourself some mistakes, right? So I spend everything immediately, but I'm not out there spending it on parties. And I think to Bungalow's sort of question there is like, do we not have people who, what is it? Your first one was here.
Is there no longer an average person to take basic advice? Yes,
exactly. I see it as a step program. Okay. First you learn the basics, right? And I kind of believe that's what this book is kind of immediately teaches like, okay, anybody who doesn't know jack shit about money, here's kind of the basics. From there, you can start thinking, hey, maybe you know, maybe some of these just aren't quite working in the current financial system as well as I had hoped. So how can I better do that? And then that's when you start building it up to like, at least now I'm financially literate. Am I an expert? I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I am financially literate to enough where I have a lot of really good cushions in living my life. So I think if we are to try and get the average person in, like involved in just understanding any kind of financial literacy, I do believe we need to start from the very basics of well, I mean, Will, what's your saying over there? Peanut brain, diamond hands.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to somebody trying to say, hey, here's the very basics of starting money, like starting to accrue something, start with the very, very basics. And
For
that's
sure.
going to be the 7 steps.
Will's catchphrase over there makes perfect sense. The
That's great.
idea behind it is that you don't need to overthink this. You just got to make the plan and stick to it. You don't have to do crazy, like, out there plays and do, like, advanced tactics and, like, really, like, start trading Forex or something crazy. No, you just need to have the simple plan and stick to it. In my opinion, I think one of the ills with the modern world is that a lot of people get pitched more advanced ideas and they try to go with it without ever mastering the basics. And what I mean by that is they don't have these like 7 steps down that are going to be that solid foundation on top of which you can start doing other more outlandish or riskier plays, so to speak. Like, I think this is something that might happen to people in crypto, is that people that are not super well informed on their own finance or the market in general, they might put money in at a top and then just get absolutely wrecked because they don't exactly know what's going on. And the reason that they're so wrecked is that, to begin with, the basis that they started from was not stable. I think the reason that you see a lot of the finance gurus out on the internet right now, like Dave Ramsey is a very popular guy in the zeitgeist, and then a guy popped up in the last year that I saw. His name's Caleb Hammer on YouTube. He does financial audits of people. What both these guys talk about is really not that different from each other. It's basically just get a little nest egg, get a little bit of savings and emergency funds, and then after that, pay down all your debts possible. Granted, Dave Ramsey is the guy that created like the debt snowball to try to like work with human psychology a little bit better. So it might not be like mathematically optimal, but he's trying to give like a very, very slight shift on the basic advice. And the idea is that you got to get your house in order before you start getting after it and start making all the crazy plays. So that's what I see. And I mean, to put it back to Bungalow's comment, like, yeah, people are no longer like.
Can you pull it back up, put it on screen again?
Yeah.
And then
basically saying that average people are not necessarily doing basic financial literacy stuff. Like, yeah, it's decently applicable. People are trying to keep financing things, put it on the credit card, just bigger house, bigger car, more of this, more of that, more vacations. Yeah, it's just straying away from the principles. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah,
like,
that is the basics nowadays, isn't that exactly what you said there, Zenith?
The basics have never gone away. We've just forgotten them because culturally, as Americans especially, I think it's just, I don't think it's too harsh to say we've gotten a little fat and happy over the years of just the windfalls of basically the fallouts of World War II and being number one on the global stage for so long.
I'm gonna do a quick silly transition here, hard transition. I'm gonna shout out Bungalows for Bachelors. It's a very close associate of mine. It's my brother. He started this program for teaching dudes how to build houses and things. So if you guys are wanting to build your own house, or you want to learn what all goes into building houses, then sign up to this program. It's very fantastic. I'm a member myself. A bunch of my friends are members and stuff, and he does calls and things. So quick little caveat and shout out. He's a very intelligent man. Look at this, is a very well-rounded, well-asked question. One of the things that I want to explore in this question is, I wonder if it is the average people that take the basic advice that become like the super crazy above average people, and the common man who doesn't listen to the basic advice are those the people that end up, just falling off to the wayside and ending up, just kind of trailing out and living a mediocre life. Nothing necessarily wrong with that, but nothing extravagant or crazy either. They just kind of exist, and then their time's up. I wonder if the people that take the basic advice and do the simple things, if they end up becoming the people that turn into the super successful ones? I don't know, but that's my fun little thought experiment. Good question, brother.
What
Fair
was
enough. I
that
was
called
gonna
again? That law 80-20?
That is the Pareto,
Pareto.
principle.
Pareto principle. No matter how many times I hear it, I always forget the exact name of Pareto. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what you just described right there, Will.
Yeah.
The common man is usually going to be 80% of everybody. Is that common?
Yep.
It's pretty
80%.
common to me. I was going to say, we got another good comment here from our very own Moonpilled Rational Optics. He gave us a little breakdown of what he thinks is some decent income planning. Sort of what you were talking about earlier, Nate, where it's like you have them, like the money comes in and it's gone. You got to plan for it. So if we can bring that up, that'd be great. I'm going to try to read it out of the chat. It says 10 to 20% into crypto, 10%-ish into metal assets, 20% to debt, and 50% for life, roughly. Those sound like great numbers to me. 50% for life, and then basically that's another half that's just going to investments or paying off debts. That's fantastic in my opinion, because the book like repeatedly talks about that 10% figure, and that right there is already tripling it into crypto and precious metals, and then paying off debts. Perfect. What do you guys think about that?
I also buy metal, so I'm down with it. Moonpilled Rational Optics, good shit, bro.
What the fuck, Will?
Bill's just like
do not
sniping
have
pawn
forks?
shops on the road.
Oh, this guy.
No,
I
dude,
can
these are
totally
forks from the dollar store, man.
I was gonna say I could totally see you just like traveling the country, scouring pawn shops for like mismarked items, and be like, "Oh, this is silver right here. Let's pick it up on the cheap."
Nah,
That'd be
bro,
perfect,
this
honestly.
is that quality stamped steel from the dollar general or dollar whatever the heck.
He's gonna be
These are my precious metals.
He's gonna be that guy from Mystery Men that as soon as a zombie apocalypse happens, he just
Oh
jumps in
my
and starts throwing forks
God.
everywhere.
Dude, I need to watch
We
that
also-
movie.
We also got another great comment from Moonpilled Rational Optics. This is also, I know, how he actually read the book and is well familiar with it. There's a parable that talks about people that put in consistent work over time, and it's the idea that if I tell you to fill this river, how are you going to do it? And the answer is every day you go down there and you throw a stone into the river. You don't necessarily say that you're going to, like, I don't know, not do it for a week and then throw 7 at the end of the day, but it's just building that habitual dedication to getting it right the first time. So
Habits, man.
habits.
That's a good one.
I was gonna say, what is it? 7 habits of highly effective people, and is it atomic habits?
We might have to
Atomic
cover
Habits,
those
yep.
ones too.
Atomic Habits, that's it.
Those are on the short
Wrote
list
down.
for books later on. However,
Sci-Vive. We got to throw Sci-Vive on there too.
Yeah,
we will be
absolutely.
doing Sci-Vive. I'm gonna ask SJ if she can come on and do an official book review.
That'd be
Because
awesome.
for those
nice.
people that missed out on the Wednesday episode, we had a wild SJ. She's actually the audiobook narrator for the Richard Hart book, which, God bless her soul, because that book, the raw PDF version, it's hard to read. It's an unedited manuscript effectively with like HTML links in it. But if you go onto her YouTube channel, she has it all. She even took a voice acting lesson for redoing the audiobook. So she not only did it once, but redid it a second time to make it better.
Oh,
All right,
It's a long book.
This is Mageddit. Any final comments on the 7 cures to an empty wallet?
No, not really. Just pretty much what we've already said. I think they're still very effective today. Just maybe need to be reapplied, kind of in modern terminology.
Fair enough. All right. With that said, let's get on to topic number 2. So we have the 5 laws of gold. This is a parable that talks about a wealthy man that actually is after the time of Arkad, the richest man in Babylon, but he was one of the people that was taught by Arkad. He was wealthy himself, and he had a son who he was looking to groom to take over the head of the family and the estate one day. So he gives his son a sack of gold and says, "Son, you have 10 years to do your best that you possibly can with this. If I am impressed with your results, I will give you everything in the estate and you will be my heir. If not, then I will find someone else." So the young man goes out. He tries to make the best investments he can. Unfortunately, he gets scammed by some people that are horse racing and do it repeatedly. He gets scammed repeatedly by other people that don't know what they're doing in business. And he even gets desperate and doesn't understand that his expenditures are outpacing his supply of cash. And he gets all the way down to where his entire sack of gold is gone, and even some of the clothes off of his back he had to sell just to be fed. But eventually, he learns the five laws of gold through hard work and mentorship and asking people for advice. And then the 10 years finally come back, and he has a big feast in honor of his father. and his father he presents him 1 sack of gold, saying, "Father, here's your initial investment, and then I have also prepared 2 other sacks of gold right here to give back to you to represent that the knowledge that I learned during my times is worth twice this initial investment of gold." So, with that said, let's get into the 5 laws of gold. Number 1, gold comes easily and increasingly to the man that saves 10% of his earnings. Number 2, gold labors diligently and multiplies for the person who finds it profitable employment. Number 3, gold clings to the protection of the person who invests their gold with wise people. Number 4, gold slips away from the person who invests gold into purposes through which they are not familiar. And number 5, gold flees from the person who tries to force it into impossible earnings. So, very briefly, notably, this may sound very similar to the 7 rules that we talked about previously. However, those 7 rules were talking about how to increase your income and how to prepare for the future, versus this one is talking about how to properly invest all the stuff that you've saved and the key traits that go with that. So, 7 cures for an empty wallet, gaining money, 5 laws of gold, how to keep your money. So, we're talking about, again, saving. If you save, it's not only going to build money, but it's also going to apply your mindset to other things. Gold multiplies when invested. It does. Gold clings to the people who invest it with wise people. And it slips away from people who don't know what they're investing it in. And then lastly, gold will flee from people who try to force it to do things that it just simply cannot. So, my lovely panel, do you have any ways that you can apply this to the world of crypto? I think that 5th one might be especially applicable, where gold flees from the person who tries to force it into impossible earnings.
Do you mind if I use kind of an anecdotal kind of setup for my own life on that?
Please do.
So the way that I kind of view those 5 rules works kind of like this. And this is what I've kind of done with my own life. Work hard, so that way you can get into good standing to be able to get a higher raise and or kept around when you do start making more money than everybody else with the company. Have a company that gives you the ability to expand further. Like with my pest control company, I'm able to make sales or upgrade to other services, which ultimately I get a commission off of. So if I work harder, I make more money, right? So that, and then apply that money to something that I want to have grow, aka crypto. So now I've got an idea of where I want it to go. But then where do I put that? And do I know what I'm talking about? How about I get around people that really know what they're talking about? DGen Roundtable, right? And others as well. And then from there, then I can start putting together a plan. And then I can start teaching. Sound fair enough?
Sounds fair enough to me. I was going to say, we actually have a great comment from Moonpill again. He says, the first 3 laws of gold can be summed up as dollar cost average, staking, and the moon gang. So basically, make those consistent dollar cost averages in, make sure that you're staking your crypto so it's not just sitting there, and then lastly, get around people that are like-minded and understand what we're all investing in. I love it. All right, Will, what you got for us?
Man, I was gonna say something pretty similar to Moonpill, but he didn't. Damn it, dude! You just stole the thunder right out from under me, bro.
He's killing it tonight.
Dude, he hit the nail on the head, man. It's basically just like you gotta know how to spend your money. You gotta know how to make your money work for you, and you gotta find the people. Like it's all just boils back to the thesis of like everything that we need to do is super duper simple, right? It's not like crazy complicated advice. It's know what you're doing with your money, put it to work and hang out with smart people, right? It's like this is not crazy. It's not crazy rocket science stuff. This is all like tried and tested throughout like the spans of time. I couldn't think of the word there. But yeah, that's good shit, Moonpill. Good shit, bro. That's what I got.
I think so the first 3 we covered. I think this last 2, so we have gold slips away from the person who invests it into purposes through which they are not familiar. And then lastly, gold flees from the person who tries to force it into impossible earnings. I think that's especially important in the crypto world because our industry is very new there's a lot of people out there that may not be the most trustworthy or the most certified, or maybe even know what they're doing. I mean, hell, we have the FTX trial going on right now as we speak. So there's a lot of opportunity to make bad decisions with your savings. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody that's involved in this, but early on in the project, I was informed about the sacrifice for the 9-inch decks, I believe it is. And when I was talking with some of the people in there, it was like, yeah, this thing could give us massive gains. This could rug. We don't know. Me personally, I was not super knowledgeable about the situation. So I stepped away. I said, I wish you boys the best of luck. I'm going to sit this one out. And am I going to miss out on some gains? By the looks of it, I might. It looks like the project has successfully launched, and a lot of people seem to be happy about it and making plays with it. But at the same time, I think in my case, this is trying to apply those steps wisely and try to make sure that the little nest egg that I have, I'm not just going to throw it to waste.
Well, you could also apply that to like people hopping into things they don't know about. This is an example of this, and I don't really know a whole lot about this topic, but using leverage, specifically like shorting and longing or like 10x leverage. I don't know how all that stuff works. I've purposefully stayed far away from it because it sounds really cool and tempting. And so it's like, you better not do the things that sound cool, especially if everyone says, oh, avoid this stuff, it'll wreck you. So it's like, okay, I'll just not look into it or learn it about it or anything. But you hear stories all the time about people getting wrecked using leverage. And I just, my understanding of the basic principle of leverage is you borrow extra money against an asset that you have, and then you gamble on that, like basically going up or going down. And then if it does the opposite of that, then you lose everything. But you can take out more money on the stuff that, or like against stuff that you already have if you put that up as collateral. It's just like you have the option to get super duper liquidated super duper quick, and it could just happen quick, fast, and in a hurry and stuff. So that could potentially be what was that, number 4, number 5 of the laws of gold there, Zenith?
That was for don't invest in things that you're not familiar with.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I think you're entirely correct. Leverage is definitely one of those things that will get you wrecked super fast. And I think it gets a lot of people because on a short time scale, we really don't know which way the market's going to go, especially in the world of crypto. Like things can go up and down super fast, especially when you consider that with like smaller cap coins or altcoins, whales can affect the price massively on their own. So when you start going into leverage, yeah, you're just opening yourself up to a world of hurt there. I mean, shoot,
yeah.
Like every other week we hop on the Sunday episode and we talk about X many millions of dollars got liquidated in longs or shorts because the market moved one direction that people weren't ready for.
Fuck yeah, man. All based on a faulty news story. Did we cover that? Kind of the short caveat. Did we talk about that on the podcast anywhere?
I want to say, are you talking about the fake Bitcoin ETF news?
Yeah.
I want to say we covered
cover
it, and we talked about how there was like $300 million worth of people that got liquidated in like 20 minutes.
What a silly gooses. See, so this is why you don't do leverage, guys. Is because some fucking intern can write a fake story and make you lose all your life savings.
True.
It's like he didn't do it on his own. The market reacting to this fake story is what caused a whole bunch of other people to like get short. So it's like, it just goes to show that like we live in a world where like we're all walking around on thin ice, and every now and again like a fucking barracuda or whatever will like just pop up from under and just gobble you up, and it's like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't walk on that patch of thin ice over there or something. I don't know. That's a really good analogy. I know that there's a really like there's a lot of statistics that back up barracudas behind attacking people underneath giant fields of ice and things.
There you go. Mrs. McGettit, I saw you come off mute. Do you have something for us?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think Jay did an emergency call on the Telegram when that went down. I don't think we actually covered it in a specific show, but he was on call for like a good hour or two when I know when that happened, I believe.
Well, somebody somewhere talked about it.
This is a great point to say that if you want to get on these emergency Telegram calls, you should join our Telegram. It's totally free. All of us are in there, and we talk about all this stuff in real time as it happens. So
yeah, hell yeah, guys! Join the
Telegram. Should be in the description down below. Join up, and we look forward to seeing everybody in there.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention, kind of going on to rule 4 and 5, because I feel like the first 3 rules, they're almost like kind of like the easy part. You know what I mean? The last 2 are more difficult because the principle there is kind of saying, don't go too far, don't do too much, trust the right people. And it's like, okay, well, how do you do that? So the story does kind of go into this a little bit more, and they talk about the gold barter that that one person goes and talks to when he earns the 50 gold, and then his sister wants to borrow it for her husband, and he's just like, I don't know what to do.
Real quick for a little more. No, we'll talk about it. You can absolutely lead this one as well. I was just going to add a little more context. So this is one of the parables later in the book. One of the city guards is bestowed a gift of 50 gold through his earnings and a little bit of inheritance, and he goes to a gold lender. They actually had like gold lending merchants at the time, basically like stockbrokers and investment managers. And he goes to the dude and he asks like, hey, everyone and their mother has come out of the woodwork to ask me for money. What am I supposed to do with this? Like, how do I invest this wisely and lend it properly? So
yeah, and then
take it away.
The gold barter basically gives him his system, which is basically the idea of collateral. Get something in return for what you lend them, and make sure it's something that they're going to want back. You know, don't take a seashell as collateral when they're not going to care. You're never going to get your money back if you do that. And the main reason that I wanted to bring that up is because in my early days when I started in crypto, I did basically exactly that. I trusted, like, I wouldn't say I trusted the wrong people. It's not like, you know, people did me ill on purpose, but I went to people who knew probably very little more than me. And then they would like get into all these like, you know, garbage coins, these meme coins. And then they'd be like, hold on to it for the rest of your life. Hold on to it. And I'm like, okay. And then it got up to a point where I think it was almost double from what I had put in. My money had doubled it. And they were like, keep holding on to it. Keep holding on to it. And I had my finger on the sell button. And the second I went to press it, because I was just like, no, I don't trust this, it dropped instantly to the point where I was losing money again. So it's really difficult to really emphasize those last 2, because you can't just inherently know what to trust. You can't read the future, but find yourself that gold barter. Talk to people, get their knowledge, gauge their knowledge, and don't just trust them blindly just because, you know, they're your friends and you care about them and you don't want to be rude to them. Like, find the people who truly know what they're doing. And that's like a really, really, really big point with that gold barter. That's really what they go into with that. They kind of like hammer it in that guy knew what he was doing. He really did. And he had fantastic advice. And, you know, he probably saved that man from losing all of his money, because if he had just blindly borrowed it out because he cared about these people, he would have been screwed, you know?
Most definitely. One of the things that I find interesting about this parable in particular is that this is one of the few examples of people in this old world who technically have access to like leverage, so to speak. And this guy is giving advice to people, and he's saying that, hey, any of the investments that you make, be sure that your money is going to be safe and that you're going to have the ability to pull it out with a little bit of gains easily. The idea was that you don't want to lock up money for a long time without a way of getting out if you can, and also ensuring that when you do lock up your money, you're actually going to be getting enough value out of it to be worth your time. And then lastly, of course, ensure that whatever plays you're making, you're actually protecting it, and that there's not a high probability of losing everything, because now you're going to owe those people their original money back. So this is one of those examples where they're like, hey, maybe take it a little bit easier, but still try to find good, steady gains where you can.
And I would like to actually add on. Oh, sorry. I would like to add on about the whole thing that I was talking about the speed of today versus how things were back then. When you're talking about like, oh, make sure that you know what you're doing, that you can get in and out quickly. For them back in those days, that was like a week or two's worth going to a city, trading a bunch of, you know, assets around to make more money and then come back, and be careful not to lose it via robbers or such, right? More violent means. It's versus nowadays, think about what it is. Oh, I leveraged something out to 100x on Saitama coin, Mrs. McGettit, and and yeah, now it's completely gone. Everything is gone, and that all happened in the manner of what, a day or two. Yeah, shitcoins be shitty, man.
Ew. Will, what you
What
got?
are the I was just gonna say like something for you folks at home to pay attention to. If you're in the ecosystem and you know a thing or two about crypto, and all of your friends and family are saying like, "Oh, it's a terrible thing, don't do it," blah de da, and it's like, okay, this is time to buy because this is when pretty much everybody is ignoring it. You know, it's probably on discount, it's probably on sale. Once your family starts talking to you about Bitcoin, once people who you know for a fact don't know anything are talking to you about cryptocurrency, right? Like once you hop into the Uber driver, and you know, like a ton of other crypto influencers say this, but it's like when you start hearing normies talk about this stuff, that's like, oh snap, this is when like it's really gained all this crazy momentum. And like, I don't know how much longer it's going to have this momentum. It's probably time to start considering taking profits. Like when you start hearing your family ask you about Bitcoin and talk about Ethereum and whatever, and you know they don't know a damn thing about it, then it's like, okay, this is the point where this asset has reached such like crazy levels that now the normal people are looking into it, which means it might be running out of steam here in the very near future. So just something to keep in mind. It's not necessarily a foolproof system, but it's worked pretty well in the past for me anyways. So just some thoughts there about if your folks are talking to you about cryptocurrency.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the famous bottom and top signals, or also the Jim Cramer law.
Yep.
Is whatever that man's saying, do the opposite.
Yep. You don't want to do, if you're doing the thing that everyone else is doing, then you're going to get the same results as everyone else. And if you're like most people, and most people are, what everyone else is doing is probably not working very well for generating wealth because everyone else is not wealthy, right? So if you want to be, if you want to make a lot of money, retain a lot of value, and move high up in life and have nice things, then you probably shouldn't do what everyone else is doing. You should probably do the, you know, the simple, you know, unique advice stuff. Eat well, save your money, right? Don't go have crazy expenditures. All these simple little, like, brush your teeth, you know, all these simple little pieces of advice that a lot of people don't follow. And it's like it I'm going on a rant here. I'm gonna
No,
end it
you're
with
good.
like, don't do what other people are doing, and you'll probably end up better.
For sure. I completely agree. I think one of the things that inherently happens when you know the field that you're working in is that you have the ability and the opportunity to see things before they happen and manifest. There's a YouTube channel called How Money Works. They actually like today, I think, released a very good video talking about the short-term rental market and talking about like kind of like the rise and downfall of Airbnb, which is that, yeah, for a while, this made a lot of sense. Quality was very high. Both renters and rentees were very happy with the situation. And then people saw this as a way to make money. And then it just went mainstream. Everybody and their mother tried figuring out how to do rental properties. Quality dropped. Also, the sheer number of people that got in it just skyrocketed. So now you're competing with everybody, which means that the money pool is getting sucked up by everyone collectively. And now the gains that were there were no longer there. And sure, you do technically have an asset under your name, but in a lot of these situations, people are going to be underwater on the mortgages because they were relying on income to pay off the mortgage, but now the income's not going to subsidize the mortgage. So now people that didn't know what they were doing might end up getting a little bit wrecked.
Yep. And you know,
I
it's
actually have a
just
little
one of
bit
the,
of, oh, sorry.
it's
Hit
just
it.
one
What
of
you
the
got?
unfortunate things that like people will, like, the wheat will separate from the chaff. And it's unfortunate to see the people that we, you know, love and care about go through tough times because they made some dumb decisions. But it's like a lot of the times you got to let people make dumb decisions so that way they can learn the valuable lesson from it. Sometimes it's appropriate to try and step in and save them. Sometimes it's appropriate to just let them fall down on their face and, you know, get scarred knees and shit, and have to deal with the consequence, like, oh, if I touch the hot stove, I'm gonna get burned, right? So, and Nate, go ahead with what you want to say, bro.
Oh yeah, and for me, it was just an anecdotal what happened just 3 days ago about Airbnbs, and I just kind of wanted to add on there, Zenith, with that. I've seen it happen. I mean, I'm the pest controller, so I go in there when they have bugs and they've got rodents running around in their Airbnb. They can't have that, obviously, for an Airbnb because it's a company thing, right?
Yep.
And so now they're getting very upset at me and saying, "Oh my God, it's so much money. I can't take that." But like, it's $75 a month to take care of it all. This is a part of owning a house and renting it out like that. Like, how do you not see these things coming? And it just seems strange to me when you get into that type of position where you're like, oh, it's too much money. It's only an Airbnb. Yeah, it's only your income.
It's only
Like,
yeah, it's only a service. It's like a service that they're providing. They're solving someone's problem of I need a home and I have money, right? I want to trade my money for home, but only for a short period of time, right? And so like it's just
Mhm.
it's amusing to me when people like this Airbnb person you're talking about, like when they complain about, oh, the price is high because there's a problem. It's like, dude, life's full of problems. You're gonna have to deal with problems. Not everything's gonna be perfect. You need to pay Nate $75 so he can get rid of your rodents. Like they're not gonna go away on their own, man. Like you have to trade the money for Nate's skills and expertise. Like it's a simple concept, and it always amuses me when people get upset about having to spend money to solve problems. It's like, well,
yeah,
if you could solve it yourself, you wouldn't have to pay me the money, right?
exactly. And
You
here's
either
the
pay someone else
irony.
the money or pay your time.
Yeah, and here's the irony of that. The week before, I had serviced the house just for the bugs, and I told her that she was going to get rodents because I've seen this happen over and over again.
Yep.
And I told her that, and she said no, she was not going to do it. And then 3 days ago, she now found evidence that there are mice running around, and she's got somebody moving in today.
Bummer, dude.
And I already know what's going to happen now. Those people are going to be finding mice because we can't get rid of them that quickly.
Yep.
It takes about a week or two. Sorry.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Should have listened.
I am going to segue real quick. Mrs. McGetta, you had something to add here. What do you got?
I just wanted to add kind of more into this story. Same thing you guys have pretty much been talking about, but I heard back in when COVID hit, a lot of people who had bought these houses specifically to Airbnb them, they really got like just destroyed by the market because obviously travel was cut off. And so this really goes back to those same principles of finding somebody who knows what they're already doing, because a lot of them, they got into debt to buy these houses. The prices they were charging were barely covering the mortgage, and without people actually renting the space, they had no backup to pay that mortgage. They couldn't afford it on their own. So that just really, really emphasizes the idea of know what you're doing, or at least find somebody who knows what they're doing to help mentor you.
For sure. To be honest, I can't knock people too hard when it came to all the COVID stuff, just because that was a true black swan event. So it's very hard to prepare for something like that. Granted, I mean, if, maybe another book we're going to talk about one day, Extreme Ownership. The idea is that you are not responsible for the things that happen to you. However, you are responsible for how you handle them. So in situations like that, you got to figure out how to move quickly and what your numbers are and how the math's changing. But at the same time, like the average folk, no one's ready for that. No one's thinking about that kind of stuff. But then again, once you have skin in the game, you got to move quick. Once you're in hot water, get going. So
yeah, you're exactly right. And one of the main reasons I wanted to mention it is because people who don't have that backup, who don't have something to kind of save them, like Nate's example with the rodents, they didn't want to pay for it because it was too expensive. Well, if you didn't have money ready to handle something like that coming up, why did you jump into the endeavor like head first like that? Why didn't you do some more research? Why didn't you have a mentor? It's just when you go in, I would almost say too quickly. It's a similar concept to me of like a get rich quick scheme. If you go too fast and you don't do your research and you don't have something to back you up, save that 10% of your income, you are much more likely to get wrecked just trying to move too quickly and do these things without having the knowledge that you really need in order to make sure that you're going to be successful.
Definitely. And even to get back to the wisdom of the gold merchant that was asked for advice on how to be a gold merchant, it was, if you're going to start an investment, make sure that you have the ability to get out of it if you need, and that you're not going to tie things up forever, and that you're not going to lose your investment. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, there are a lot of people who start businesses specifically to sell them. They don't ever plan to keep that. They don't plan to keep the business for 50, 60 years. They create it, they get it running really well, and then they sell it off to somebody.
Yep. For sure. I think our good friend Robert Kiyosaki is actually famous for doing just that.
Yep.
So,
I think he's on the buy side though, but yeah, the buy and invest.
True. I mean, at the same time though, I'll try to use this to transition a little bit. We were talking about how you should probably think things through before you get to it. However, there's the final parable that we're going to be talking about on my scheduled stuff anyways, which is the parable of good luck, or how does a man become luckier? And it sounds like the people of Babylon boiled it down to stop procrastinating. So they start the idea off by talking in sort of a, shoot, what's the ancient Roman, or was it Greek? It was a Greek forum where everyone gets together and talks about the ideas. Was it gymnasium?
Oh man.
Might have just been the forum.
We'll call it
It was the Hanging
gathering.
Gardens, the famous Hanging Gardens they had. That was
Temple
it
of
was
Knowledge or
for
something?
everybody to come through. There was nobody who was more special than anybody else. The entire point was just throw out ideas, have conversations, figure things out.
Correct. And that's where this parable comes exactly from. One person throws out the idea, is it possible to become a luckier man? And they start exploring the idea, and they say that, yeah, we even have our own forms of the casinos where people go throw dice and win money. And it's like, on a six-sided dice, there's one side that's a red cube, and if you roll one of the red cubes, then you get paid 4 times your wager. But then they also looked and said, hey, if we have 5 chances to win, but we only have 1 chance to win that pays out 4, then whoever is running the casino is going to keep 20% of the coins on average every night. And people are saying, like, yeah, it's possible to be lucky there. However, they looked around at each other and said, is there any like truly successful and still wealthy person today that we can identify that made money using that practice? And they all looked at each other and said no. So then they eventually kept descending into it, and they talked about, well, you can be lucky in business. We look and see that there are those people that just like felt like they just had this thing fall into their lap, and magically, just by the grace of the goddess of their time, who is Ashtar. Ashtar is the name. I wrote it down. Take notes, boys.
Yep.
They say that, yeah, those people just got lucky, and they really dissect into that, and they're like, how do you get lucky in those scenarios? How do you have these opportunities and capitalize on them? And then there's a man from a foreign land who stands up and says, I don't know the word for this, but what do you call the person who doesn't do what they need to do to prepare for things? And then someone says, a procrastinator. That's who it is. They get into the idea, which is that in order to be lucky, you have to A, be ready, be prepared for things, but then at the same time, when the opportunities present themselves, you have to jump on it quickly. You can think yourself to death and analyze the situation and keep trying to make safe plays and like hedge risk. But at some point, you just got to jump headfirst into it and make the play. Famously, the story that they talk about in this one is there's a man who is driving a flock of sheep to the city of Babylon, and he shows up at night. And then unfortunately, one of his family members died, and he just got word. And the guy says, I have to get home right now. I need to sell these sheep, but I can't do it now. And he finds someone who is looking to buy sheep and sell it in the city the next day. And he says, look, man, I got to sell this. I'll give it to you at like 2/3 of the price or even half. And the guy says, well, it's dark. I can't count all the sheep. How will I know? And then the guy that's got to go says, I'll even leave one of my best guys here with you. He can help you count in the dark, and then we'll figure it out. The guy says, I don't know. I gotta figure it out. Eventually, he decides to wait till morning to get an accurate count of the sheep. Little did he know that Babylon at the time was in a bit of famine, and there were people that needed to feed lots and lots of people. So they rushed out and they saw this giant flock of sheep, and they said, we will pay as much money as you possibly need to acquire these sheep right now. And the guy that was given the offer in the night ended up getting passed over because all the people from the city ended up paying like 2 to 3 times the price. So he missed out on that entire gains of buying an asset at half price and selling it at what effectively would have been a 6x overnight.
Bro, what a burn. That is a crypto numbers right there.
I know. That's the original crypto get wrecked right there. It was.
Mm-hmm. So what it comes down to, and one of the things that they essentially boil it down to, like you were saying earlier, it's about like being prepared when there's an opportunity, right? So that's one of the things it talks about in the book, is that's essentially what luck is. It's just like, hey, are you ready when the opportunity presents itself? Are you going to jump on the deal that you see, or are you going to sit and you're going to think about it, or whatever? So it's like it's about timing and preparedness, right? So if you're ready to hop on good deals when they present themselves, then hey, that's essentially what amounts to luck in the real world. Like, as far as you can get like a an effective and predictable result. Like lucky people in the real world, they're not dudes that like go to like casinos and gamble all the time, right? Lucky people are people that always have their eyes open, that are always looking and scanning the horizon for deals and jumping on them like when they have the ability and when like they have the presentation. The people that are just kind of like, you know, lollygagging about and just kind of going along to getting along, they wouldn't be folks I would consider lucky. I would say that people who are lucky are the guys that are out there with their eyes open, ready, looking and scanning. That's essentially what the whole point of the book boils down to. Sorry if I kind of like stole your synopsis out from under you there, Zenith.
No, you're good. I was ready to toss it to you guys anyways. Mrs. McGinnis, what you got?
Did you want to go? Okay.
Oh, I just started mute.
So the way that based on kind of what you're talking about, Will, would you say then that you kind of create your own luck? Because ultimately luck is nothing more than opportunity showing itself to you on a consistent basis, and it's your decision to jump at one of those opportunities.
Absolutely.
With also having the opportunity or the ability to jump on those opportunities.
Yeah, when all else is equal, the people that oh shoot, we had a man. I gotta stop using this. I gotta stop driving all the time. I couldn't see that comic. Can you pull it back up again, Mrs. McGinnis? Lucky people are watching and taking the advice of Charlie, DCC, Moon Gang, Roundtable, etc. Yeah, absolutely. So lucky people are learning, and lucky people are waiting. Just like you were saying, Nate. Like people create their own luck. You know, like if you're not ready and you're not watching and you're not just inserting yourself, like the more things that you look at and are around, the more opportunities you're going to find. Like if I spend all day looking at a wall watching the paint dry, I'm not going to be like walking down the street and I see $1. You know, I'm not going to open the door for someone who then like says, "Oh, hey, what a cool gentleman. Hey, you know, let me buy you a drink or whatever." Right? Like the more that you go out and you interact with the world, the more things that you do, the more things that you pay attention to, the more opportunities that you take that are good opportunities. Don't take bad opportunities, right? You got to apply a little bit of wisdom here. But the more opportunities that you take, the more chances there's going to be that you're going to find something sweet. You know, the guy who only turns over one rock doesn't find a crab underneath it, but the guy who goes to the beach and he turns over 50 rocks, he might find 10 or 12 pretty cool crabs, and he gets to take them home and have some, I don't know, crab soup or whatever the heck, you know. Like
Crab
if you're not out
rangoons.
there, yeah, if you're not out there getting after it, like, you know, the dude still like he had to turn over 50 fucking rocks, right? Like the guy who only turns over one rock, he might be lucky, he might not be lucky. But like the more often that you interact with the world and the more that you're paying attention to like, oh, this rock looks like it's got scuttle marks under it or whatever, right? It interchange the analogy with whatever you want. I think I've kind of driven the point home. But you're absolutely right, Nate. Like people are able to create their own luck. People who
What's
talk
the
about being
adage?
unlucky all the time. Just,
Success is when preparation meets opportunity.
yeah.
Exactly. There is an element of luck in which opportunities show up, and if you're in the right spot for them. But at the same time, where you take luck out of the equation is the rest of it. It's where you have that preparation and you have the fortitude to look at an opportunity and say, 40% goes down, 60% goes up. Yeah, punch the ticket. Let's do it.
Yep. And you know, like if you like you do that one time and you might make it or you might lose. And if you make it, excellent. If you lose, you need to learn something from that experience. You need to pull some value out of that entire process and then apply it again to and then do the thing differently with the, like, you take the lesson that you learned, you apply it to your next step, and then you do it again and you do it again, and you keep stumbling, you keep falling over, you keep doing all these things, you keep making these mistakes, and you keep learning and picking yourself back up and persevering and trying. I think it was what president was it, Calvin Coolidge, that said that there is no substitute for perseverance, I want to say, or like perseverance beats everything, or like the only thing that matters is perseverance, something to that effect. I'm sorry, Calvin, you know, if I got it wrong here, but like the thing that differentiates people is the ability to keep going after they fall over, and the ability to like keep trying and keep looking for these lucks and these opportunities and these and all this good stuff that there is out there in life. So get after it, find shit, chase it down, fall over, skin your knee, get healed, learn from it, do it again.
For sure. To relate this back to one of the points that we had from book club episode number 1, which is Robert Kiyosaki was saying, when you work, don't necessarily work for money, work to learn. Just because your investments don't necessarily pay out with money doesn't mean that you can't learn something from it. Because if you lose money and you don't learn anything, you've basically just been gambling and you're really lost.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I wanted to add is there's another book I've read, and for the life of me, I wish I had written down just all these books I've read so I could remember what the heck they were, but I didn't. But in there, they say that luck comes to those who seek it. So luck comes to people who are going out and physically trying to find opportunities and going out and making luck. So there's a big thing to be said for that. I believe he said, I found that the luckier people tended to be the people who were out there doing things all the time. Luck came to them more often than it did to, somebody sitting at home, just hoping that opportunity is going to knock on the door. So I wanted to add that. And then another thing about the sheep story, I wanted to bring this back up because I feel like there was the person when he was telling the story in that meeting, and they had that one guy who kept popping up and he's like, oh, you procrastinated. The reason that this person mentioned the story was because I think he considered it like his greatest missed opportunity ever. It was a really big deal for him because, as you said, it would have been a huge profit. And he made the mistake he made there is he gave an inclination that he could guess how many sheep were there, judging by the sounds they were making. But he wanted that for sure number. He wanted to count them. And they couldn't do that in the dark. It was too difficult. And that's when he pushed it back to, well, let's say till daytime and blah, 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 blah. If he had just gone with that instinct of being able to have a very good idea of what he was looking at by sound alone, because he had that, then he wouldn't have missed it. So there's a lot to be said for that you don't necessarily always have to be, completely prepared. It's a very good lesson to take that waiting until you're completely prepared can be too long. You don't necessarily have to have all of your I's, dotted and all of your T's crossed. If you have a very good guess, that's still very good. You can still go with that.
I think the key word that you really spoke there was instinct. It's the instinct to go off of to know that this is a good deal. I don't have to have every number down to the exact 10th, but I just have to know that this is the correct move. I can see it at large scale, and I just feel it in my bones, and we're just going to go for it. That's the instinct.
Here's what I would like. Raul Paul, actually, this is one of his, I would say, probably favorite things that he looks at. You know that meme, the one where you got like the dumb, and then you've got like everybody else.
Oh, the bell curve, the IQ bell curve meme?
Yeah,
I love those. Those are good.
I'm pretty sure this is an example of him, that the sheep guy being up here, when he should have been on either side of these.
Whereas like the either side is like a lot of sheep is good. No, you don't know how many it is. Lots of sheep is good.
Lots of sheep is good. Lots of sheep is good, and I'm pretty sure this is either exactly the amount he's saying or even more right now. So, yeah, this is a stupid good deal.
Oh, for sure. To tack onto this, I actually have an addition from Moonpilled. I found the quote you're talking about. He asked me to read off Teddy Roosevelt's famous Man in the Arena quote. All right, here we go. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. But there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat. I'm gonna
sum that up in a very simplistic way really quick for you. Shoot for the moon. If you don't hit the moon, at least you'll land among the stars.
I think there's even a modern poet who put it as well and just goes, just do it.
Just
Don't let
do
your
it.
dreams be dreams. Just do it. Ah.
And another one. And another one.
Great stuff, Moonpill. This is an excellent quote. It's along the idea that no one has ever built a statue to a critic. It's only great men who have strived and also have strived and failed. It's why there is the distinction between when you have statues of people and horses. However, the horse's legs are on the ground determines how their life went. It's like if their feet are on the ground, it means they successfully did what they did and they lived. And if the horse is bucking and has 2 feet off the ground, it means they're dead. But they died trying.
Huh. I've never heard that before.
I believe so. I
Like
want to say,
Like the charging horse?
yep.
Kind of. Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah, the horse statue leg meaning. And then there's also a third option, which is if the horse has only 1 leg off the ground, it means that the rider was wounded in battle.
That is pretty
So,
cool.
Win, wounded, dead. But they still have a statue, and that's pretty
Yeah.
sweet.
That's true. Well, I don't know. Maybe some of them got tore down. Who knows?
Hopefully not those. I mean, there's just a lot of these examples in your local towns. It doesn't necessarily have to be the George Washington Memorial in D.C. is just a giant tribute to one man. It's a lot of local areas have small heroes who made differences in their lives. Are we all going to be the next Michael Saylor? No, we're not. Can we still make gains that'll make us heroes in our own lives and our families? Yeah, I think that's entirely possible.
Fuck yeah, man. We're going to do
Big
it.
thank you to Moonpilled Rational Optics for the shout out there. Excellent quote. And we also got Brother 64 in the chat. Good to see you, man.
Oh, hell
Welcome
yeah.
in.
What's up, brothers?
Yeah. The book
Got all
club
the fam in the house.
the book club is going well, and I could not be happier about it. So, with that said,
That's very
we
nice.
are coming towards the end of our scheduled segment. Is there anything that my lovely panel would like to throw in? Any other parables you want to talk about?
I got nothing. I think I sort of kind of covered the one that I wanted to talk about earlier. It's just the basic premise of you got to make sure that you do your own work. You don't do other work. You don't do other people's work for them. That was
a great one. Absolutely
read that.
adore that. Because the oxen was sitting there complaining to the donkey about like, hey,
Listen
you
to
get
the
to carry
donkey.
around the master all day and I got to do all the hard work. And he's like, okay, well, just act sick and blah, 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 trying to help him out. And so he does it. And then that same work that the ox did got thrown onto the donkey. So you can imagine the donkey was pretty pissed at him.
No good deed
then it
goes
comes-
unpunished.
Yeah, and the funny thing was it came back around where the donkey was like, hey, you do that again. And I overheard the farmer talking about just sending you to the slaughterhouse. So, yeah, good luck trying that again. But, yeah.
Yep.
It is a very interesting thing. I would say in modern terms, you'd call that running someone, throwing someone under the bus.
That's true.
And it's interesting because like his intentions were pretty good. The donkeys were, but like, good intentions only get you so far. It's all about what's the results. He wanted
and
to help
part of
his
the-
friend out, have a nice day, and he suffered for it. So it's like, you shouldn't help your friends to the expense of you suffering. You shouldn't do people's work for them, because then they miss out on the learning, they miss out on the growing, they miss out on everything.
Yeah, that story kind of made me sad because, like you guys have said, the donkey was trying to help, and then he got roped into doing the work, and he was just so mad. He's like, "Yeah, if you do that again, they're gonna literally like kill you." And I'm like, "Okay, donkey, calm down. Jeez, you had to do one day of work, bro. Like, holy crap."
Yeah,
But
it was a bit
at the same
extreme,
time,
huh?
I mean, at least he warned the guy. He's like, you don't want to go to a slaughterhouse, bro. You don't want to go there."
One of the other points of the parable is it talks about how they started off as friends that worked together every day, and after the end of it, they never spoke to each other again.
Yep.
Yeah, it just ruined the whole thing. That story just made me that one I didn't like. I didn't like that story out of the book.
Bit of
So
a
don't
bit
do
of a
people's
downer.
work for them. But no, man,
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
the only
Lincoln
thing I
said
got.
right here. He didn't mean
the
for the
ox-
donkey to have to do it.
Didn't intend for his friend to take on his burden.
Yep. Well,
that's the-
intentions only go so far. It's like it doesn't, like, intentions are cool and all, but results are a little bit more important than intents. Like, it didn't matter that, like, Adolf Hitler intended to try and make the world a better place. The fact of the matter is that his actions were very atrocious and very horrible. It doesn't matter that, like, who was it? Casey Anthony, who loved her children very much. Like, she had great intentions, but the actions and the results, that's the stuff that, like, that really, really matters. Like, and so,
Yeah,
like,
and that's
for
a very
the
good point too, Will.
yeah, so for this ox, like, he didn't mean to hurt the donkey, but, like, his actions did basically ruin the friendship, you know? And so it's like, shit happens sometimes. Doesn't always
And
go
it's
the
just
way
the
we
irony
plan.
that it was the donkey's idea. Technically, the donkey
Yeah.
caused all the drama at the end of the day.
Yep. Makes for a good parable, though. It has that sticky factor. So for those of you who haven't read the book, I would definitely recommend reading The Richest Man in Babylon. We gave away a lot of the sauce, a lot of the secrets, but it's a great book. It's a fantastic read. It's super quick on Audible. I want to say it takes like 4 hours if you listen to it on 1x speed or something like that. I don't quite remember, but it's a great read. Highly recommend.
Yeah, that's about right. It's about 4 hours long. I will say, this is an old book that was written back in the 1926, I want to say. So there's been a lot of versions. There's even had versions where they found extra tablets that were added on to the end. So overall, how'd you guys feel about the book? I know it's not a technical manual for life, but it gives some pretty sound advice. And then when it comes to just like general wisdom, parables are a very classic way of doing it, and they're decently entertaining. So what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, they are stories, right? Actually, I didn't get to say anything about my favorite segment of the book, which was the camel herder.
You tell.
Davasir?
Favorite too.
Is that Davasir?
Can't remember it because the names kind of escape me of exactly who was who, because they kind of throw the names out quite a bit, and you're like, this guy was talking to this guy was talking, and then I started losing it because I'm like, these names are crazy. But the overall story was simply that, you know, he was a dumb old kid who had the opportunity to create something, had his wife and everything, a good life in Babylon, but then spent his money way too quickly, right? And going back to the same rules as before. And then he was just unable to make it. And then going in, he ended up getting, he sent his wife back to his father, and then he went out with a bunch of raiders and started, you know, just being a menace on the world. Eventually he got caught and was sold into slavery, in which the first wife of the guy he was sold to started asking him, well, are you a slave or are you a man? You know, are you a free man or are you a slave? And it got to the point where she was his camel guy, or he was her camel guy, sorry. But eventually, you know, they went to his sick mother, and then she said, okay, you can take these camels and get run off. Go ahead. It's time for you to prove it. And he almost died in the desert. He had no idea how to get back to Babylon. But then he kind of found that second wind, right? Sort of the hero story, right? So am I a slave who just gives up and allows the thing, doesn't matter what it is, a man or the elements or whatever, to just push me around and have their way with me? Or am I going to be that man who gets something done and does something? And ultimately he decided he doesn't care if he even dies. He doesn't need to eat. He doesn't need to do anything like that. He just needs to get back to Babylon and actually redeem himself and pay off all of his loans, which is the first reason why he ran off in the first place, right? So that story really was it's one of those stories I try and connect with. You know, it's like when when I'm fucking beat up, waking up, it's hard to breathe, and I'm just like, fuck it, let's go anyways. You know, it's that type of thing. Take care of the family.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's a handful of the parables actually make this connection or ask the question, what's the difference between a free man and a slave? Even in the very first parable, when you have the musician and the chariot maker, they look at the slaves who are watering the gardens walk by, and they ask themselves, what's the difference between them and then us? Granted, their position is they're a slave, but they're fed, housed, and clothed and given a job, versus we have to do all of that ourselves and we end up with nothing. So it's like, who's really free here? Are neither of us or what? And then in this situation, again, it asks the question, Are you a slave or are you a free man?
That's a good quote. Moonpilled Optics just put up. A man chooses, a slave obeys. That's a prominent one. That goes in the quote book. Good shit, bro.
Definitely does. I was gonna say, I actually have another quote written down from the book where it says, "The soul of a free man looks at the world as a series of problems to be solved. The soul of a slave cries out, 'What can I possibly do?'"
I like that. I'm clipping that. I'm gonna steal that. Post it up on Twitter.
Not mine. I stole it from some guy who's about 4,000 years gone.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everyone's stealing everything. I'm pretty sure all the words have already been spoken. You know, there's only so many combinations.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Yep.
There we go.
Well, gentlemen, should we wrap up? I think
we shall.
All right. Excellent. Well, this has been a good stream.
For sure. Did we like this one better or worse than Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I think it was pretty good.
Do you mean the stream or the book?
The book.
I like Rich Dad Poor Dad better.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad has a lot of meaning to me because it was actually a piece of a sign reading from my parents, and it was basically their way of asking me, like, "Hey, we need you to figure this out because we already have built a little bit of a nest egg for you and your brothers, so you guys better not mess this up and figure out how to keep it going because we're entrusting you with a lot." So for me, when they gave me that book, that was kind of one of those moments where it was like, this is time to step up. And it's one of those things where to those who have all, more shall be given. So make sure you fall into that category instead of the people who are given something, squirreled away, presented to the master 10 years later, and he said, "Look at you. You did nothing with my wealth. You've effectively squandered it."
Yeah, it's a lot like the story that you talked about where the man, his dad gave him all that gold and then he went out for 10 years and he ended up, I don't know if we touched on this, but he ended up losing it all. And then by the time he came back, he re-earned it and then some. And he gave, ultimately, when he got back to his dad, he gave him the original gold back and then 2 extra bags of gold just to thank him for his wisdom.
For sure. Yep. The way he presented it too was very cool because he says, "I have brought you a bag of gold to repay the bag of gold you have paid me initially, and then I have also am paying you back 2 bags of gold for the knowledge that you have bestowed upon me along the way, because the knowledge is worth twice as much as the initial investment."
Agreed. Yeah, that story and then the slave story that Nate just talked about, those 2 were my favorites.
All right.
And the donkey story was sad.
At this point, I will let everyone know that the book for 2 weeks from now, hopefully, unless schedule changes, 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. This is another book that was recommended to everybody by Charlie, aka Cultivate Crypto, one of our mentors. I will give you a bit of a heads up. This one is about just under 300 pages. The font is small, and the line breaks are also small. So good luck. Hopefully the audiobook version is easy. Also, yeah, for everyone that has not quite found the audiobook just yet, I will try to find it on Audible and post a link in the Telegram.
Excellent. All right, cool beans.
Gotcha, right, before we go,
fantastic streams. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, we're going to go around.
I wanted to give a quick shout out to our chat. You guys have been amazing. We had a lot of really good comments today just to bring up and to enhance everything we were talking about. So thank you, Moonpilled. Thank you, everybody else. I know there was one other person who had some really good. I cannot remember your name, though. I'm so sorry, friend.
Yeah, we had
Moonpilled for sure.
Bungalows for Bachelors, Moonpilled Rational Optics.
If you want to learn.
Yes.
And No Money Mike and Trolling Moling.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate everybody that tunes in, and big thank you to my book club members here as well. This is my personal project, and I'm super happy that other people wanted to pick it up with me because I was more than willing to talk into the ether by myself like a crazy person. But having your lovely faces and insights is much better. I can tell you that much.
Hell yeah, man!
Excellent. All right, we're gonna go around, Mrs. McGettit. Do you want to shout anything out for where people can find you or upcoming stuff?
The only place that you're going to find me is probably in the Telegram.
Fair enough.
Try to keep my stuff pretty private otherwise. But you can if you ever need to talk to me about anything in there. Mostly I do the background stuff for everybody, as you guys might already know. Sunday, we're going to be having a fun stream. It's not totally set in stone yet, but it sounds like we might be doing a Crypto Jeopardy. So, definitely tune in for that because that's going to be great.
This Sunday is going to be a bit of a less conventional stream. I mean, I'll be honest, you're looking at the crew right now, so it's going to be us. Other people are taking vacation, so they're letting us really just kind of go ham with whatever we want to do. With that said, yes, Mrs. McGettit, always doing the production and always killing it, and we appreciate you greatly. On to Will. Will, where can people find you?
So people can find me at linktree/Will Stevenson. That's all my everything there. I just made one of those very recently. And then also all my socials and everything are down below. A project that I want to shout out real quick that is finally complete. For those of you who are fans of the Rule Zero podcast, my dev Arx Hominum has finally got the website up and running. It is beautiful. It's fantastic. We've got all of the Rule Zero podcasts that have ever been made. They are up. Well, I mean, they're already live on YouTube. But for those of you who are fans of Rule Zero, who are wanting to roll around and look at all the stuff that Rule Zero has made, it's always been kind of a pain in the butt to jump from like one host to the other host to the other host. We've got them all in order. We've got them all linked. It's essentially just a link archive that makes it super duper easy for people to go through and find all of the Rule Zero stuff. So this is just a fan project that him and I have been working on for about the past year, something like that. And it's finally up. It's finally rolling. Like, we got the domain name, we got everything. But anyways, you can find that on my link tree. You can also find it at rulezeroarchive.com. And that's all I got going. Oh, actually, one more thing. If you guys are a Hexakin, or if you're a Pulsikin, or if you're just a GGen community roundtable member and you want to do meetups with other DGens or other Hexakins or other Pulsikins or other people in the crypto sphere, I'm working on creating right now it's an Excel spreadsheet, but I think my final goal is going to be a Telegram group with split subgroups, and it's essentially just going to be areas of the world. So like the United States, split down into states, perhaps split down into cities. If there's enough people that want to do meetups, we can do like city specific. But right now what I'm looking at is creating like regional areas where Hexakins can jump in a chat room, organize meetups, do their own thing, and I can help facilitate all that stuff. So right now what I'm doing is I'm creating an Excel spreadsheet. The link is up in our Telegram. I can send it to you if you're curious, if you want to sign up for be like, hey, I live in, Boise, Idaho, and I want to meet up with other Hexakins in the greater Washington, Oregon, Idaho area, right? Then, hit me up. I'll throw your info on the Excel spreadsheet, or you can throw your own info on the Excel spreadsheet. I made it open to edit for everybody. So that exists. If you're a Hexakin who wants to meet other Hexakin or a Pulsikin or anything like that, then, join our Telegram. Find that link or direct message me on Telegram or Instagram or whatever the heck, and then get after it. Thanks, I appreciate that, Moonpilled Optics. Hell yeah, man! I'm trying to make the world a better place. But that's all I got. Zenith. I guess I'll pass it off to Mr. Nate.
Absolutely, our excellent co-host Nate. What you got?
So first off, that is badass as all hell. Rules. I have watched a lot of Rule Zero all the way from 2020. And yeah, you're correct. Trying to bounce around everybody's channels and find everything is kind of like, wow, okay, it's a little bit difficult, but for you to console it all into one place, that is very good. And then on top of it, it's like, okay, well, now we're finally done with this. What do we do now? We're bored. Obviously, you're bored, right? Right there, Will. Yep. Then you're going in with the whole Hexagon, Pulse Hexagon, right? That is an amazing idea, because one of the greatest issues I would say that we have currently in the RH ecosystem is it used to be Hex. We are Hexakins. And now there's a whole bunch of other things going on. And people are divided. So if we are able to get the entire economy, the entire ecosystem put back together to be unified, I believe it's an incredibly important endeavor that you're doing right now. I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of where it goes. I still got to get my information in there. I forgot I needed to look at that again, but I've been, let's just say, maybe a little sick over the past couple of days.
It happens, man. There's no sweat, no rush.
Nah, man. You're out there fucking killing shit, so I need to do something as well. So other than sit here and talk your ears off, right?
Yeah, here we are.
You're reading books too.
So. Yeah, no, I just want to congratulate you on that one there, Will. As far as it comes to me, I'm ordering my new mic, my new camera here real soon because I broke my mic after I got a camera, and then I found out my camera doesn't have a long enough cord. So yeah, I'm just reordering stuff. $100 going into it. It's the same thing as $100 scratcher. Throw it all in there. Let's get me some better sounding equipment, right?
There you go.
Maybe
Investing in the
better
show,
looking
bro.
too. You got to do it, man. You got to do it. And what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to be starting on my own channel, The Ascending Man. I'm going to be talking not necessarily about crypto alone, but little things that I come across in kind of daily life. In fact, I'm looking for my first show somewhere in November, probably after my birthday, which will be the 8th. But it's about the end of crypto and how it's very realistic within the next few years that we can be completely without technology. Thanks to a coronal mass extinction event that we're 700 years overdue for. So I'm going to start working on getting that put together, and I'll talk about it. It's crypto related on kind of like a subset, but it's very interesting stuff and is something for anybody with risk analysis, maybe going to gold instead of crypto. Maybe, I don't know.
I'll say this much. Robert Kiyosaki recently was asked if he was doing like rapid fire questions. They asked him, gold or Bitcoin, which one? And he thought about it and said, gold.
There was one of the things I like about the way that you phrase that, Nate, is like, I'm gonna go work on my coronavirus project thing. Like you're the one who's starting a whole apocalypse event, not the discussing it. So that was quite amusing. I had fun with that.
Well, that's what it's called. It's a coronal mass extinction event. There's been it happens once every about 10,000 to 12,000 years. And it's basically just, if you think about it this way, it's kind of like a bow and arrow. You know, you could do this until it's too much, you can't go any further, and then it pops, right?
Yep.
And you know, pressure is building in the sun. Eventually, it pops with solar flares of all solar flares. It comes flying through, and it'll penetrate the Earth's magnetic fields, which ultimately turns into a gigantic EMP for Earth-wide EMP.
Shoot, I know you say that might be not as interesting, but I tell you, it beats the hell out of my personal project. I'm trying to calculate taxes for short and long-term investments, so that'll be on my channel. All right, Nate,
that's
you got
good
anything
stuff,
else,
man. Whoa! Don't just gloss over that. Don't just gloss over that. Let's get some details, dude, because taxes in crypto is that's one of the hardest. That's one of the hardest things to figure out and you know like work with.
Fair. All right. On my personal channel, Hexco Space Force, I'm working on a video where we're going to be doing a number simulation. We're going to be doing the hand calculations to figure out when is it worth it to swing trade short term versus long term. The gist of it is that if you hold gains longer than 1 year, you're taxed at a rate of 20%. And if you have what's called short term capital gains holdings, where it's you bought and sold within 1 year, then you get taxed at 35%. So trying to figure it out. There's also special tax implications for certain areas. Famously, Puerto Rico is one of them, which is that if you live there more than half the year, you pay zero capital gains tax. However, you have to live there half the year and you have to maintain it for 3 years minimum. Otherwise, you owe back taxes, and that's bad. Anyways, that's going to be on my channel before I get into my spiel. Nate, anything else? All right, brother. As always, I am Zenith. You can find us on the DGen Roundtable. We have show coming up Sunday. I guarantee you this one is going to be one of the more entertaining episodes that we are going to make. At least we're going to try to make it that way ourselves. And then after that, on Wednesday, we have Hexfire coming on. Will, any plug about Hexfire?
That'd be Nate.
Nate, any Hexfire information for our?
Oh yeah, Hexfire. He is quite the T-share individual. He absolutely, I would say, his big thing is on-chain data analysis when it comes to Hex. This guy knows everything left and right. He created Hexfire, which you're able to go look at all the charts on the data analysis and everything. This guy is in the heat when it comes to what specifically is going on. So if you ever have any questions about anything like what is actually happening on chain with, you know, with the whole Hex ecosystem or RH ecosystem at this point now, because he's starting to move into that as well, you just ask him questions, man, because this guy knows it, and he's an interesting character, that's for sure, and I'm just looking forward to it.
Absolutely. That is going to be a banger of an episode, so stay tuned for it. That is going to be on the 1st of November, Wednesday, our Sunday stream as usual, the 29th. And then the next book club, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce that word, actually. We're going to be doing that one tentatively November 10th, 2 Fridays from now. I'm hoping to keep that as our consistent schedule. Every 2 weeks, one book. It's pretty feasible considering what the book is, as long as we're not reading the freaking Gulag Archipelago. So with that said, we're going to close it out here. We thank you very much for spending time with us and also doing the work of reading these books alongside us. It takes time and effort, and we thank you very much for spending it with us. So with that said, we will catch you guys next time. Good night.